I'm standing here, entrance to the camp, where all the trains came in. And I cannot believe that so many millions have crossed seas and the world has done nothing about it. And I'm trying to think as I'm walking at what happened here. What exactly happened here? Oh God. And I see them kicking Mother is out of direction. And she had her arms stretched out and where did she vanish? Where did she vanish? Where to? Mom, I will tell our story. I will tell our story because the world must know.
On September 1st, 1939, Nazi Germany invaded Poland. The attack unleashed a storm that had been gathering for 2 decades. Germany's defeat in World War I had left the country humiliated, its economy shattered, providing an opportunity for a radical nationalist movement led by Adolf Hitler. Hitler's rhetoric blamed those who had supposedly weakened the nation. Most of all, he blamed the Jews. He was determined to expel every Jew in Germany and eventually beyond, as the Nazis expanded into Austria, Czechoslovakia, and elsewhere. When the occupation of Poland brought 2 million Jews under Nazi control, the notion of expulsion increasingly gave way to murder. Even in the most remote villages of Europe, no Jew was safe.
I was born in 1934 in Transylvania, Romania, in a tiny village called Ports. We were the only Jewish family in the village, and in the Moses family there were 6 people. My father, Alexander, my mother, Jaffa, my older sister, Edith, my middle sister, Alice, and Miriam and I were twins. Very cute. And the nice thing about being a twin, we always had each other, so we never felt lonely. We lived on a big, old-fashioned farm. It had a big orchard with lots of fruit trees. I always remember being on the cherry tree, eating some juicy cherries, looking at the sky. And in 1940, I was 6 years old. The Hungarians occupied our village, and everything changed.
When Hungary allied with Germany, a nightmare began for Jews in the country and its occupied territory. Eva recalls the first film she and Miriam saw, which depicted how to catch and kill a Jew. Their school days became torture.
The kids started calling us names, Miriam and me, and dirty Jews, and then they began spitting on us, taunting us and beating us over the face. The teacher did nothing.
In Dachau near Munich, the first Nazi concentration camp was opened less than 2 months after Hitler became German Chancellor. As anti-Semitic policies intensified, the number of camps grew into the thousands. Increasingly, they were used to detain Jews. With the so-called final solution, the Nazis' 1941 decision to annihilate the Jews of Europe, a number of internment camps became killing centers. Most of the murders were done by gassing. The corpses were buried in mass graves or burned in crematoria. Auschwitz first opened in 1940, but soon proved too small. So 2 years later, construction began on a new camp just over 2 kilometers away. It would become the largest mass murder site in human history. It was known as Auschwitz II, or Birkenau.
They came with horses, and they said, "We have come to take you away." The streets were lined with people. Nobody smiled. Nobody said a word.
Between May and July 1944, more than 430,000 Hungarian Jews, half of the pre-war population, arrived at Birkenau by cattle car. Railway tracks led directly into the camp to deliver the prisoners within 100 meters of the main gas chambers. The Moses family was among the first to step down onto the freshly hardened concrete of the unloading and selection platform.
A Nazi was running in the middle of the selection platform, very clearly yelling in German, "Twins! Twins!" He noticed Miriam and me, and he demanded to know if we were twins, and my mother said yes. At that moment, another Nazi appeared from nowhere, pulled my mother to the right, and I can see still as my mother's arms were stretching out toward us, and she was pulled away. There was so much pain in her eyes. That is the last image that I have of my mother.
Most underwent a different selection. Nearly 90% were immediately marched to the gas chambers. Men and women deemed stronger were sent in the opposite direction to a world of starvation and brutal labor until they died or were murdered.
To the right, to live, to the left, to die.
In the Nazis' attempt to propagate a perfect Aryan race, another group was subjected to medical experiments. Of greatest interest were sets of twins. They were set aside in special barracks, separated by gender, and tattooed with a number on their arms. Eva and Miriam Moses became numbers A7063 and A7064. In the morning, they were awakened by a visit from the so-called Angel of Death, Dr. Josef Mengele.
One of the supervisors would be on guard and start, "Mengele is coming!" Everybody straightened out like little soldiers.
He was at the cutting edge, as he thought of it, as Nazi eugenics and race science. He would establish, by working on human beings in Auschwitz, on those twins, not only maybe unlock the secrets of twin births so that after the war every good German mother could have 2 German children instead of just 1, but unlock the secrets of how to engineer a race that looked more like the master race. And that ambition overrode all conscience and sense of morality.
On Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we would march about 1.5 miles to Auschwitz I, where we would be placed in a room naked for about 8 hours. They would measure every part of my body, compare it to my twin sister, and compare it to charts. On Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, we would be taken to another lab that I call the blood lab. You could have about 30 kids in here at a time. They had chairs with little arms like that, and we put our arms out. And they tied this arm, and they tied this arm, and then they took lots of blood from here, and lots of injections into here. The content of those injections, we didn't know then, nor do I know them today.
After one injection, Eva became feverish and was taken to the hospital. Mengele determined she had only 2 weeks to live, but Eva defied him. After a little more than a month, she was back in the barracks, and life as she knew it resumed. Experiments, starvation, stealing food, surviving in a landscape of death.
At times, that seemed to be going on so long.
And then, suddenly, it came to an end. By January 1945, it was clear the Nazis were on the brink of defeat, and most of the Auschwitz prisoners had been force-marched to other camps. Eva and Miriam were among those left behind. On January 27th, the Russians came.
There were lots of people. They were all wrapped in white camouflage raincoat. I had no idea who they were, but that was not important. One thing was important. They didn't look like the Nazis, and that had to be good.
The Russians were stunned by